Hello everyone, I figured I'd do a little stream here. People are free to join. Should I know you, of course, just the usual nonsense. Um, haven't done a stream for a while, so I thought, well, we open it up. Hopefully the quality is bearable. If there's lag or anything, just comment below. I am monitoring the comments as usual, so just let me know if the quality drops. I'll just go audio only. But I figured while I can, because I have a wired connection to the internet now, and I think I'm the only person awake using the internet in our house. Hopefully, things are going to go fine, and we're not going to have too many stutters and things like that. I'm under the impression, what is it? It's 11 o'clock in the evening. I'm under the impression that it's only going to be me. I will find something to babble on about, though. As usual, I can do these things for fucking hours. It's probably not. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but people seem to tolerate it for the most part. Although, as I know, I'm not just going to respond to comments for 3 hours. That gets boring. I understand. That's why I do the responding to comments videos, because if you have an insightful, interesting comment, leave it on the videos which are kind of, about a particular topic instead of these live streams which fucking go all over the place. So there you go. Yeah, we'll close that. Open up Skype, see if anyone's messaged me. I doubt it. It's been one of those weeks when no one talks to me. It's vice versa as well. Yeah, so I have Skype open. Should anyone be viewing this and have me on Skype? Otherwise, just leave a comment in the chat. Most people tend to be kind of autistic and can't do these things. They murmur and stammer, and I used to. So they decide not to. But you never know. Someone might become brave one day. I wonder if Alarex will do it. Alarex, I wonder. Right. I think in the meantime, until someone messages me, or someone somehow magically appears here. Apologies for the kind of lighting, by the way. That cover on the light there dims the room to like 70% of what it should be. And I can't be bothered to just take it off just for the sake of doing this video, because what difference does it make? You can still see me. You can tell I'm laughing. Excuse me, I've had a few beers. Ales, I should say. Not only that degenerate lager, not only that piss water Americans seem to, quote, enjoy, unquote. Because I know it's not actually enjoy. No human being can actually enjoy such a thing. It's just something they drink to get pissed, so it can dulls life's misery. That's the modern world for you. But there you go. Right, what could we fucking talk about? We could talk about Hillary Clinton's speech. Good grief. That evening, I recorded with the monologues I do. I just use a really, really simple webcam program called Cheese, which you get. Really, it's like you can get on Windows, but it's with Linux, and it just makes a video. All done, all done. I make a little thumbnail to clean things up aesthetically, and that's that. It's the video. The content's there. It's not the fanciest production, but there you go. That'll do. That's what it's supposed to do. But I tried to record a video on what the alt-right is / responding to that speech. I must have recorded like 60 different fucking videos, attempts at me trying to do this. And it got to like 1 a.m, and I just thought, no, I can't do this. I'm not going to bother. I'm not going to bother. If I can't do it now, I'm never going to be able to do it. I suppose it's one of those things that you try and do a video like that. I tried to wrap up what the alt-right was in a minute, or like 2 minutes, and I couldn't do it. At least not as concisely as I wanted to. I can say, it's a network on the internet full of people who are right wing. There are these people, there are those people. But I'm so autistic that I just had to specify absolutely everything I was saying, and it just takes ages. So my camera is already fucking going out of focus. Little cunt. Can't see anything. No, I'll do. I suppose that'll do. This webcam. It's good for what it was, but for what it is, like money wise, but otherwise it's a pain in the ass. Every time I move anything, it just kind of goes out of focus. Anyway, Augustus Pugin, where the fuck have you been? It's been months. Good grief! Unleash the Abo spirit, brother. I can't. If we had Morality official here, I haven't spoken to Morality or like the Britpol guys for months. Partly deliberately, but I can't unleash the Abo spirit. I don't have anyone with me. I mean, I'm probably not a very Abo spirited person. I'm not that regal or glorious, I'm afraid. But a lonely Englishman, a lowly Englishman, lonely. Good grief! Is that a Freudian slip? Anyway, yeah, we can talk about Hillary Clinton's speech. Good grief! I have to agree with Sticks, Hex, and Hammer. Pagan moron that he is. I'm joking. I love you, Tal. Like 50% of what Hillary said in that speech was pure bullshit. Like she just made it up. And this idea, as Paul Joseph Watson, libertarian moron that he is, pointed out, or let's just say liberal, as you can fuck it doesn't matter. He's a left compared to me. As he pointed out, this fucking idea that there is this kind of conspiracy involving Vladimir Putin and the alt-right is like connected really strongly with Alex Jones, the filter king himself, and all this. What the fuck is going? Like, obviously, she didn't write that speech, right? The Clinton campaign did. Someone who writes the speech wrote the speech, writes the speeches, wrote the speech. So one of the people behind the scenes. What a fucking idiot! They didn't fucking get anything right. They fucking went on the internet, saw alt-right, saw Alex Jones probably somewhere, I don't know, and thought, oh, well, there's a connection here. It takes like 2 fucking seconds to go onto YouTube. What is the alt-right? Richard fucking tells you, I tell you, everyone else fucking tells you. People in the alt-right or people who are associated with it, like me, I'm kind of on the fringe. I'm not really at the center. I'm definitely involved. Like, we fucking openly say what's going on. And we have been doing that since the beginning. It's not a fucking secret club, really. We have our own language and memes and ways of interacting with each other, which is all kind of, in-group preference, in-group preferring. But it's not a fucking occult club with like special passcodes and handshakes or anything. We're not Freemasons. And we also aren't degenerates, for the most part, like Freemasons. But it was retarded. I couldn't believe. Oh, good grief. I just got a message on Skype. That's quite serious. My friend, bad timing. I will respond to that, however, if you are watching this. I will respond to that later or tomorrow in the morning when I'm more sober. But I watched a bit of her speech. And I watched all the videos about it. I watched Stefan Molyneux's video, which was quite good. And I like Stefan for his videos because with a lot of these events and these sorts of things, you have a kind of standard response. So there are various reasons you could say Hillary did this or the Clinton campaign decided to do this. And Stefan did the thing I didn't expect him to. I thought he was going to talk about Steve Bannon and Breitbart, but he didn't. He spoke about blacks in America, which is interesting. There's obviously some truth to what he was saying. There are obviously multiple dimensions to this question we could analyze. But yeah, to me, dude, this whole fucking thing, these people have no idea what the fuck they're talking about. They have no idea. Trying to connect Trump to this kind of fringe online subculture. Right, loud on Twitter, memetics, you appear bigger than you are, yada yada. I can understand that. But all they had to do was look around on the net, and you would see that alt-right YouTube channels get a few thousand views per video at max. Some of the bigger people kind of who have some connections, Paul Joseph Watson, Stefan Molyneux, etc., they have never self-identified as alt-right. You know? It's amazing. It's fucking amazing how they got this impression that the alt-right was worth mentioning Obviously, it's totally fucking backfired because now everyone's fucking web searched who is the alt right, and our rank, the fire is rising. We could say. Um, I'm quite interested though as to really what was behind this, what motivated this, because it's so illogical. I did make my original video about it unlisted. It's still there, just unlisted because of so much swearing in it and not enough content. My apologies. Um, but I have to just regurgitate what I said there. What the fuck? What? This makes no sense whatsoever. And her mentioning Alex Jones, the Filter King himself. I can't believe anyone who saw his reaction to it. Him fucking laughing like that. Yeah, as Augustus says, far dark reaches of the internet. If it's the fucking far dark reaches of the internet, what the fuck does it have to do with your presidential campaign, you fucking stupid old witch? Like, what the fuck? It makes no sense, but that's what makes it so funny, and the fact that it's totally backfired, and has all it's done is get all the normies to web search what is the alt right, and guaranteed you have now loads of new people watching me and Woes and reading Radix Journal and the right stuff. That's the only outcome of this. It's only good for the alt right. I mean, I've whined a bit about normies in the past, because of the things I'm interested in, and you don't want people touching these things who aren't cautious enough if they don't know enough regarding like esotericism and things like that. You get people who misunderstand things. That's fair enough. We all make mistakes, but you don't want an influx of people approaching these matters who don't understand them. Traditionalism, this label traditionalism, gets thrown around a lot by people who don't quite get it. That's fair enough, right? Again, people make mistakes, but you want it manageable and you want to be able to correct people. With this whole potential influx of normies, you don't want the whole actual core of things getting watered down. You saw it on Woe's video in the comments section. Basically, libertarians and anti-SJW saying, "Oh, am I all right? Am I all right? You're just a supremacist, Woes. I'm an alt-righter," said this one libertarian moron. I was quite amazed at that. So these sorts of things you risk. If the in-group is voracious enough, we can pull the whole Chan culture thing and scare them off with kind of our variants of lurk more and go away, new friend, or be quiet. So, those things work, but there is always a danger that ain't going to happen. And so things can change. It's amazing that they have no idea. These people have no idea what the alt-right is. No idea. No, it's why I'm glad I'm doing these talks now, because hopefully I'll be able to kind of explain things. Maybe I'm right. I hope I am. But it's not as simple as, everyone in the alt-right is a goose-stepping skinhead. I mean, unless we don't want them to think that. It's a secret. But no, it's fucking retarded, this shit. I can't believe it. Augustus says, I've seen tweets with thousands of retweets saying that the alt-right thinks Obama is a Muslim. Exactly. This is what normies do. They tend to simplify everything. The alt-right is not a concise political ideology. You have a core of the alt-right being a white ethno-nationalism, kind of an American variant. Of course you do, but it's a network on the internet. It's kind of a spider's web. You have various influences and bits and pieces here and there. So you have your white nationalists, you have your conservatives, you have your traditionalists, you have some libertarians, you have people with all sorts of opinions, and all sorts of influences, and all sorts of even in the white nationalist kind of core of things, you have people disagreeing with each other. Disagreeing with each other, I should say. And all these nuances and everything which makes this community actually lively, it's ignored by all these normies who just think, oh, if you're alt-right, that means you are a fascist, and you think Alex Jones knows everything, and what the fuck? The worst ones are the people who think the alt-right is all about Milo Yiannopoulos and all that sort of crowd. Yeah. Cultural libertarians. you have a few people who might be like that. You have a few people who aren't, but it's not as simple as everyone who is associated with the label thinks exactly this. Um, but oh well. Yeah, Millennial Woes has gained subs. So has Argent Templar. I've gained a few, not many. Good, but I have gained a few. What would I consider to be fundamentally alt-right? I don't consider to the alt-right to be an ideology. It's not a coherent ideology. It is a network on the internet. It's a community. It's a social phenomenon. It's a socio-cultural phenomenon. It has its political overtones, undertones. Apologies. Um, and you could, if you compile data for absolutely everyone who's ever used the term or watched a Millennial Woes video or read anything on the right stuff, and if you took all that data and drew a mean average, you'd probably get some form of nationalism, right? But when you actually get into the nitty gritty of things, it's not as simple as that. Plenty of people consider me alt-right, but where on my YouTube channel can you find me saying, yes, I'm a nationalist? So it's not as simple as that. It's more complicated than that. The nature of these things is not as. If the alt-right had a manifesto and you know, 10 things we all agree on and have to subscribe to for us to accept the label and take the label and use the label and apply it to ourselves, then sure, you'll be able to do that. But that isn't the case. And I don't think it ever will be. I have made the prediction before that in the years to come, the term will just come to mean American ethno-nationalism or American white nationalism. It's possible, but as of the moment, as of right now, it's a fuck of a lot more than just American ethno-nationalism. Like I said, that is the core, but that isn't its defining kind of thing. Um, But yeah, to define what the alt-right is, you have to be involved with it. You have to know the people and you have to know the community. Otherwise, you have an outsider's view, and you'll only see who's loudest. And you know the Twitter trolls and all the rest of it. They're who's loudest. Anyway, as Augustus says, it's clear our ideas are rising in ascendancy. Yeah, I would say, well, the alt-right rising and becoming more well-known, I don't think is simply a isolated thing. I think it's in conjunction and really as a result of people beginning to reject multiculturalism, etc., on a mass level, rejecting political correctness, etc. The alt-right is a community which is more honed and refined and elite, generally speaking, than people who read Breitbart or complain every time the BBC is all refugees welcome. You know? There's a rising social trend in our civilizations, which is saying no to these kind of far progressive political constructs. But I think the alt-right is. I'm trying to visualize it. Me visualizing it and describing the shapes I'm seeing won't help anyone. But you know, it's the alt-right is a fringe. It is a fringe. It's not the core of anything. It is itself a niche and a result of something bigger. So people are coming to the alt-right because of broader societal trends, and that's perfectly natural. That's perfectly natural. Dear, okay. And all this is totally lost with a speech of like Hillary Clinton's. It's fine as long as we are here to catch these normies and educate them. It's not a problem. But I am just amazed, like at a political standpoint, what the fuck Hillary Clinton and her team, well, I suppose her team really, what the fuck are they thinking? But what's the point? She could have addressed policy. She could have addressed actual things which actually mattered and would have had an impact on the election. This is not going to change a thing. No one is going to say, "Oh, this Bannon guy who now works for Trump. He's with Breitbart who published an article by Milo Yiannopoulos and some some packy who said the alt-right is this. Like, no one's going to go, no ordinary person in the public is going to go to that length and try and connect all these dots. If that's indeed what the DNC or whatever is trying to do, but no one in the public is going to fucking try and do that. That's way too much work. Who the fuck is going to sit around and do all this bullshit? It's rubbish. Jimmy E. Morby. Good grief. He asks, can traditionalists go on holiday or is that denying your heritage? Of course you can. What the fuck? Anyway, now people are in the comments. They're talking about Red Ice Radio. All right, Duncan told me he will potentially be here to do this stream with me. He's just finishing something. Duncan, if you're listening, don't worry about it. I seem to be doing all right. But if you want to, sure. Yeah, people are here in the comments just whining about Red Ice Radio anyway. I was asked if I wanted to be involved with Red Ice. I said no. And not even really a particular reason. I don't have anything to sell people. Like it just seems like it's an opportunity for me to sell myself, and that's a fucking horrible idea. That's kind of gross. I'm doing this talk at the London Forum in September because of the community and the social aspect of it all, and I feel like I'm actually involving myself with some really intelligent, worthwhile people who are also my friends. There is that aspect to it. I have that connection. As Brandon says regarding Hillary again, she just pointed all of her supporters and her enemies towards the red pill. Pretty much. Pretty much. The alt-right is full of trolls and plenty of bullshit, but really beneath all that, there is a lot of truth and a lot of honesty. You know, as flawed as a lot of people are, right? Let's not be under any illusions. Most of the people in the alt-right are modern, materialistic people, are young lads who don't really know too much. But there is a profound seriousness to a lot of things beneath the surface, beneath the irony. And pointing people to that, I think, is a good thing. If we catch a few people in the net and, we can help them out, I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that, absolutely. Can traditionalists ever work blue-collar jobs? Mate, we're getting all these questions about can traditionalists do this? Oh dear. Tradition. Let's do away with that word, and let's replace it with being honest. If you're honest, you will just be as you are and abide by your nature and be true to yourself. This and just the memo is yes. Traditionalists can work a blue-collar job if one is if that is in accordance to one's own caste, one's own type, one's kind of spiritual type, then sure. If that's your role in society and in life, and that's how you, that's your purpose, then absolutely go for it. For some people, it might be more complicated. They might do different things, but a part of we could say traditionalism. I don't like using that word really because it becomes an ideological word, which is not proper. It's not appropriate. But a part of traditionalism is having an ordered society, a hierarchical society, where you have differences between different people with different capabilities. The opposite of what there is now, where you have egalitarianism now. Everyone's the same, everyone can do the same things. To a traditionalist, no, that's nonsense. Different people are fit for doing different things and contributing to society in their own particular way, in accordance to their own particular nature. You get all these fucking meme comments now. Right, anyway. If you had to emigrate, where would you go? I wouldn't. That question, no. There are too many meme comments. I can't find any good ones. But anyway, back to the point. As for why Hillary did this speech, it's something to do with Donald Trump and the black vote, possibly. Something to do with Steve Bannon, possibly. Something to do with the fact that her campaign is full of retards who grossly misunderstand the internet and the nature of the internet and the information age, and how these things function culturally, how social media, how what social media is and what's represented on it and what it means. People, basically old fuddy-duddies who don't fucking understand what all these young'uns are up to. Possibly, you could have a myriad of things which caused this nonsense. Um, it's done nothing for her campaign. I must say, Trump's response to it was excellent. He said, and this is really, really good persuasion, as Scott Adams would say. When he said, you asked about the alt right, he said, "I don't know about the alt right or the alt left." He equalized it. There's such a thing as the alt left. Well, there is, but it's even more niche than the alt right. He basically neutralized the question by comparing the alt right to a term like the alt left, which has no meaning to most people. The alt right suddenly has peaked this meaning by him saying the alt left in the same sentence. It kind of does this. It kind of brings things to a level playing field, and then he says, "Oh, I'm just about common sense." So he's mitigated this confusion because most people don't know about what the alt right is. He's neutralized this word twice, twofold, by comparing it with the term the alt left, and then by saying I'm just about common sense. Because using that term common sense, he's washed away all this political theory and riffraff and nonsense which most people have no idea about. And he's excellent response, 10 out of 10. That's how you're supposed to fucking play the game. So yeah, this speech Hillary did was pointless, and she was obviously 2 hours late. That's not good, but it was a fucking waste of time. Did nothing. All it's done is made loads of people look up what the alt right is, and you could fucking bet your fucking left nut there are going to be loads of people now watching Woes, reading TRS, etc. There you go. Albion Dreaming asks, what branch of Christianity do I prefer? That question is nonsensical. One does not prefer this religion or that. It's not a fashion statement. One I feel most closely attuned to, probably some form of Anglo-Catholicism. From what I know, Anglo-Catholicism, High Anglicanism, as an Englishman. Who is more red-pilled, Trump or Farage? Oh man, that's a difficult question, Derek Crumple Snatch. I always like seeing you there because you have the fucking picture of the dog with the noodles on its head. It's always funny. It depends. I don't know, man. I that's difficult. That's really difficult. I think Farage, actually. I think Trump is a very intelligent opportunist, and you see that in business. He's a very pragmatic, but I do think Farage is more politically knowledgeable and more worldly. Trump is good with people and persuasion and off-the-cuff pragmatism. Farage is, I think, more intellectual, if you like, and I think he would know more about geopolitics to a degree. Trump is good with human beings. Farage is as well, but I think Farage has a certain subtlety and intelligence about him, and that's come from experience. It's come from experience in him being in politics. Adam, what's the best way to red pill normies? Come on. You shouldn't have to red pill anyone. If you aren't a degenerate, people are going to listen to you most of the time. If you and I think this is a cliche to say, but I think if you're a good person, and you lead your life properly and don't have problems, and people will naturally be drawn to you without you having to try and fucking brainwash them. If people, people will be patient with you if you are confident and calm and charismatic and just self-confident to a degree. Not through bravado, but through just a sense of an inner assuredness. People are drawn to that. That's why I have fucking subscribers. I don't tell anyone about my channel. People just find it and they see something, and apparently I'm doing something right, and it sits. It's quite natural. I don't even. I've actually gone back to hiding my channel from other people's recommended lists. uh, Mostly because it made my channel page asymmetrical with the widgets. You had this like on the right, you just had this little one that just stood out, and I didn't like it. So I just thought I would just fucking have it nice and symmetrical and clean. Autism, it speaks, but yeah. So I don't even have that, and people will still find me. Obviously, people web search things and get sent things, but people stick around. You're all here. You all fucking care about what I have to say for some weird reason. And it's because I'm doing something right, apparently, anyway. Who's a better speaker, Farage or Trump? Farage by a mile. If you watched his speak, where was it? Oh, fuck. I can't remember. If you watched his speech, Farage is a great talker, a very good orator. And sorry about the lack of the Plebeian podcast yesterday. There weren't enough people, and my hay fever was really fucking bad. It was really bad most of today, but this evening, in the past 2 hours, it's cleared up because I've been just eating like manuka honey, which is this particular type of honey, um, and like eating like vitamin tablets, like fucking Smarties. It's like inoculated me a little bit. Immunized. Good grief. No, is it not? No, inoculation is when you have too much. With my dust allergy, it's because I fucking did the laundry. I fucking did the laundry and I did some hoovering, and that was it. Couldn't sleep. I couldn't even do some painting today. Couldn't do fucking shit because I fucking turned the Hoover on. It's maddening, but yeah, but I'm okay now, more or less, which is good. So that's why there wasn't a Plebeian podcast yesterday, and my apologies. There hopefully will be one next Friday. Oh, good grief, please. Anyway, what's the opinion on non-globalist leftists like Corbyn? I think he is a globalist, really, just not explicitly. I think all leftists are globalists, not explicitly. If you want to break down borders and you want multiculturalism and you want to promote multiculturalism, you are a de facto globalist who will play right into their hands and play right a fucking along with the bankers and corporations, etc. You see this with leftists over and over again. This cognitive dissonance where they just don't like all the pricks who are out fucking chanting for the EU, we love you, and all this bullshit. And they're all leftist college students aligning themselves with big corporations and banks. What the fuck? Retards. They don't fucking have any opinion. They don't have any principles. They're just moving with opinion. Argent Templar did a really good article on West Coast Reactionaries the other day. Appearance in eudaimonia, something like that. You'll see it if you go on the website. There you go. Pavel Kostik says, looking good, Adam, no homo. Thanks, babe. Mickey Mouse asks, what are your thoughts on Galen's conversion to Islam? I think it was a mistake. We won't go into that because that's a fucking hell of a topic, and I've gone into it before. So I'll do a separate video on that maybe one day about conversion and tradition and can Islam be Europeanized, or vice versa. The shorthand answer is no. I don't think I can. Okay, Duncan, do you want in? All right, I'm gonna send Duncan a link to join, and Duncan will be here. He says, "Hey, I'm hold on a minute. What's going on here?" Duncan, if you're watching this, my keyboard has stopped working. What the fuck? Why? Oh shit, it's not even getting power. Oh, is that the light? The light flickered? Shit. Is my fucking streaming eating up all the power in the house? Am I gonna get fucking visited by a spooky ghost? Please no bully. Yeah, Duncan, I can't fucking... fuck. Oh, that's fucking good. My, fuck. Come here, you cunt. There we are. There we are. My keyboard is connected once again. I think. Can I? Yes, there you are. Okay, Duncan, I've sent it to you. The link, the magic link to join the secret hangouts. Anyway, let's go to some comments before Duncan gets here. That feel when Adam got rid of his based hair. I had to cut my hair because it was summer and I would have died otherwise, mate. I am hot in the night as it is, with all the windows open, naked, thin sheets. I wake up with a headache from overheating almost every morning. And I got given a fan to use in my bedroom, but it's too loud. How sad. So just to kill me. And it's not fucking too hot either. I'm just extremely hot-blooded. I'm very good with the cold. And summer is not kind to me. And I have really thick hair. I'm like hairy as fuck. So like, that's that. Hello, Duncan.
Hello.
How's it going?
Fine. I'm fine. How are you?
I'm quite well. I'm quite jovial.
Jovial.
I am jovial, yes. I've had a few bottles this evening.
Been praising Jove. Jupiter. Zeus.
Are you implying I'm some dirty med?
Well, I did write an article where I quoted Gwenon in saying that it's linked to Thor and the god of the Gauls as well. So
yeah.
Oh shit.
You better watch yourself, mate. I'll kick you from the site. I'm joking. Anyway. So what's up? What was we going to talk about yesterday? Because I wanted to stream it yesterday. And you got like...
Oh, but then you got attacked by hay fever or something.
Yeah. Well, it was dust. It's my fucking dust allergies. I turned the Hoover on and did some laundry, and I barely slept. I was sneezing, eyes watering for like 24 hours until about 3 hours ago. That's good.
Well, if you had a Henry Hoover, I'd be asking questions. But...
why would you be asking questions? Should we not go?
What have you been doing with them?
Oh, fuck off, man! That's what the fuck. No, fuck off. This YouTube channel is expressly.
It's a no bully zone. It's a no. It's a asexual zone of gender neutrality.
Yeah. We don't have any of that fucking by gender degeneracy here, lad.
No heteronormativity.
We have transcended sexuality. We all reproduce via mitosis with that traditional.
No, actually, no. In one way, that's almost true because you say you could be a celibate person who chooses an adoptive heir, and then you pass on.
All right. Mr. Are you going to fucking take up the mantle now of Mr. Esoteric or something?
Bloody hell, yeah. I mean, I know somebody who literally got adopted, and well, I don't know them very well. I've met them once, but he was adopted by a prince, and then he was elected to the position of the prince. So it's fucking
Yeah.
he's the
Well,
Prince Abbot.
Yeah. Well, that's
fucking
kind of a spiritual procreation. It's like the idea of like Evola didn't have any kids, but he did spiritually, had spiritual children. He his kind of life force, if you like, was transmitted in a different way than it usually would. So, but there you go.
No, yeah. It's not actually a joke. It's actually real.
Yeah, that influence.
Oh, I just want to read something.
Go on.
This is a footnote from Symbols of Sacred Science, and I'm probably going to write this or add this into a essay or something. But let us note in passing that Gebel, Gebal, was also the name of the Phoenician city of Byblos. Its inhabitants were called Giblim, Giblim, and this name has remained as a passing word in Masonry. In this regard, there is a connection that it seems no one has ever thought to make. Whatever may have been the historical origin of the denomination of the medieval Ghibellines, it presents one of the most striking similarities with the name Gibellim, and even if this is only a coincidence, it is at least quite a curious one. And here, Gwenon is talking about things like the black stone and the cubic stone, which have sort of transcendent connotations, and they're linked to things like the black stone, which is called the Kaaba or the Kaaba in Mecca, and I think it's also linked to things like the emerald stone, which Lucifer is said to have lost, which is also linked to the Grail as well.
Did you just come on my podcast to just? You're just piquing my interest, and I want to read all these things. Is that from Symbols of the Sacred Science?
Yeah.
You
should definitely get the book.
I need to get that book when I have the money. When I have the money.
Yeah. So I know I've not been clear in the past. I was fucking trying to be as clear as possible. There was this some sort of emerald, and it's said to have fallen from Lucifer's crown when he fell from heaven, or at some point when he fell, and that is what the Grail has been associated with.
I was going to ask. Yeah. Okay.
But all these symbols that things like the Vajra, the Grail, these black stones, they're all also linked to the concept of the center of the world, or something like that, which has massive significance in traditional, the perennial philosophy. So that's really it's really coincidental, and I'm glad that I don't want to read too much into it, and obviously Gwenon doesn't want to read too much into it either. But he said it's if it's only a coincidence, at least it's a really curious one. That the etymology is the same.
I remember Evola mentions Guénon's King of the World in that 71 interview for French television. The interviewer asked him whether he thought King of the World was Guénon's most particular or peculiar book. And Evola says yes. And he goes on to speak about the role of the king and whether or not the king does indeed have particular power. But I think Evola there seems to misunderstand something Guénon had said about the archetype of king. Evola seems to have assumed an active role of the king as opposed to his being of an archetype. Again, that's just one of Evola's flaws, I suppose you could say. He
had a prejudice against Christianity, and he also slightly had some misconceptions, which then marred all of his sort of interpretations of things. But Evola also had, I think, you could say 3 different stages in his life. So he had like a very radical stage when he was younger, and then he had a more he more mellowed out. So at the end of it, he was thinking more on the lines of perhaps there could be some restoration in Christianity, or maybe that was in the middle. But
Mark Citadel has made this point many times as the fact that during the time Genon and Ever were alive, Bolshevism had erupted in Russia, and therefore the chances of them really going at and having a look at Eastern Orthodoxy were really mitigated by that, which is very unfortunate because Mark presumes, and I don't want to put words in his mouth, that had Evola looked into Orthodoxy, Evola would have had a far more positive view of Christianity, because the more active and more warrior-like components of Christianity are far more clearly expressed in Orthodoxy, at least in Mark's opinion. So we've spoken about it before, about the image of Christ as a conqueror, as opposed to, as in the West today, there seems to be this view of him being a kind of victim, almost a kind of sacrifice. At the evil, the behest of flawed man. Rather, in Eastern Orthodoxy, Christ is seen as a conquering figure who tricked the devil, who played him like a fiddle, and basically won in the end through his own intelligence and will.
That is really important. But there's also the idea of the Sacred Heart. And it being a sacrifice, and the importance of the blood and all of that. It's something I'm still trying to.
Oh, absolutely, same.
But I think definitely in today's world, you're looking for something strong, and when you see Russians with pictures of Christ on their tanks and stuff, and they are behind this
when they paint the Archangel Michael beneath their planes. It looks excellent. And when they spring holy water on their weaponry. I mean, obviously, James has written about this, about conventional warfare today and how it is lacking something integral, of course. But I do think the fact that in the East, they regarding ISIS and so on, do I want to touch the camera? No, not yet. But regarding ISIS and so on, they are addressing it. There is a portion of the Eastern population who are addressing it as a religious conflict. And I think that's the only way Islam, in that sense, particularly, can be approached. Just bombing it.
Well, you also have to have the willpower to do things, if you...
Absolutely, yeah.
It's almost like being as... Gone.
It's not just the willpower, though, because, I mean, America has the willpower to bomb entire cities with drone strikes. But you're missing a key integral element to it, and with these Christians doing these things, you have a higher element to it, and I think that does play into something higher and something. Yeah, more
it's a bit like the concept of chivalry that has been lost. Whereas, I mean, it's still there in say the British Armed Forces. They have a code that they have to follow, but it's just part of the machinery. It's not really a transcendent principle anymore.
There's not a knowledge of there's not a knowledge of the higher dimensions of war and of the idea of conquering evil. The morality of the action is often something totally misunderstood. So in America, and they kind of Americanized, globalized, bombing all these poor packy bastards. It's all about, killing them terrorists who want to take away our freedoms. When in fact, from a Christian perspective, in the Russian or otherwise sense, it's not about my freedom and, my freedom to eat burgers and watch Sky Sports. It's about a religious idea about positive liberty, I think it's called. You have negative liberty and positive liberty. Positive liberty is the idea of a metaphysical realization and a self-actualization and an encountering of the divine, whereas negative liberty is about temporal desires like getting drunk and other things which are kind of temporal and belong to the currents of samsara. So you have this focus upon positive liberty, which you see from a religious point of view when it's infused with these things. Though we must stress the fact that guns and tanks and shit like that, something isn't quite right in that act. In the far distance, fighting from a distance and all that sort of thing, the idea of a martial prowess has been forgotten the idea of chivalry is a part of that, and the fact that chivalry has been lost is a part of the fact that warfare has changed and become mechanized and
Yeah, that's right.
standardized. Yeah. Um, but to be optimistic, it's good that in the East, Christianity is still a strong enough cultural and moral and metaphysical force that it plays a role in the minds of people.
I'm really surprised that Gwennon and Evelyn didn't pay more attention to Orthodoxy. They didn't consider it. I mean, Friedrich Schumann made a big. I mean,
it's not. Let me just correct you. It's not Friedrich. It's Frithjof.
Oh, Frithjof.
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 Yeah, Frithjof.
I need to read it written down.
It's written
in that video. In the video of his. Is an interview of him.
Yep.
He mentions which, the interviewer asks which part of Christianity do you find the most enticing, and he mentions Orthodoxy for its mysticism. And I think
that was, I must say though, that was in the 90s.
Yeah, but I there's definitely some possibility that taking that from Orthodoxy could revitalize Latin Christianity. The Western Rite, for example, could be explored in more detail. And so could movements like the Old Catholic Church, because really what happened with the Catholic Church, the Roman Catholic Church, is that we had all of these Vatican councils, and we had the Pope declaring himself infallible, and all of these things which were at best exaggerations of the power that they had. I mean, the Orthodox Church had already considered the Pope to be, above his station, but it seemed to go further and further, and then they end up in. And you have to remember as well that this the satisfaction sacrificial theory came from Anselm, and this was at least 100 years after the schism. So I don't really want to criticize that too much, because Thomas Aquinas was greatly influenced by Anselm, and I admire Thomas Aquinas. I think he's the whole of scholasticism is great, but I don't know. It's sort of like you're pulling the thread, and you're pulling it, and it goes further and further, and you've ruined the whole garment, basically. How far can you go backwards to say, oh, this was step when it was definitely ruined? But then you're looking at history from the wrong way, aren't you? It wasn't maybe it was the schism, maybe it was before that, maybe it was Christianity, that's what ruined the West. But I think we can say for definite the Protestant Reformation was a decided turner, and really a revolution.
Well, to be honest,
certainly in Britain as well, where a lot of continental revolutionary ideas came to Britain and then were unleashed by Henry VIII's decision to break with Rome.
Yeah,
don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I do think questions of when things happen, when things are generated, are kind of a friend of mine, Dr. George House, he believes it was in the 1000s. Friend of his, I think, believes it's something earlier than that. You can go to various points in history and say, oh, this is when it degenerated. This is when our woes began. I think that, however, is a mistake. Because one is then observing something extrinsic, and you're pointing fingers outwards, and that isn't helpful. One shouldn't do that. One should not look at time in such a linear fashion.
Yeah, exactly.
Ideas are ideas. They are eternal. They exist metaphysically outside of time. And an idea is either true or it is untrue. And oneself, one is alive at the present, and one can choose to interact with that idea or accept it or not. So I think trying to pinpoint when things were happening, when things started. I did this right at the start of me doing all this bullshit on the internet. When did it all go wrong? That was something I wrote. I even did a video at the time, actually. I read it. This short scribble on Tumblr, I think it was. I think it's still there. Fuck. But I actually come to the conclusion in that article, when did it all go wrong? I go through various points, and I say, right at the beginning, because man himself is flawed. like that. And really, if you want to get down to getting down to if you I won't say getting down to again, just said it three times, but if you want to come to that question, it is inherent in man as he is, that flaws are emergent and can be emergent. I think it's totally a mistake to try and look at history so extrinsically and from such a linear point of view, because then blame and attention shifts away from the person and the self in the moment, when obviously the action of an individual should be considered at all possible times. Indeed, the present. I think people get too caught up on these hypothetical questions about history and politics and possible politics and all these sorts of theories, and it's just a fucking waste of time, because it just leads to nothing but intellectual masturbatory kind of nonsense. And you get intelligent people, like loads of intelligent people on the internet who do this, and yet when you have to try and talk to them about something substantive, you talk to them as an individual, and they're just a fucking normie like everyone else. And this is where it comes from. They're just totally boring people, and they have nothing good to say. And it's just a symptom. I'm lamenting something more trivial there, but it's just a symptom of something broader.
It's certainly a symptom of the modern world that people's conversations are largely vacuous, and is essentially a signaling match between the two people where nothing of value is said. And this happens day in, day out. And to have a real, deep, meaningful conversation with somebody is a rarity.
Indeed, yeah. It takes personal conviction and honesty and openness, and matters of individual character come into the fore. And I think it's questions such as personal character, which is of utmost importance. It's one of my talks to be partly about, because personal character is about knowing oneself and self-actualization, logos, yada, yada, yada. But character, I think, is neglected by a lot of people, and it really oughtn't be, because our crisis right now is a crisis of character, both individual and collective, because really the two aren't the same. Not to say you have control over everyone else, but a lot of people who lament the modern world are a part of the modern world. Even if they call themselves traditionalists, they still think in a modern way, they still use its values, they still play by the rules of the modern world, they aren't outside of it. Just today I saw this YouTube channel, and this guy calling himself a traditionalist and all this bullshit about him. It's just annoying, because you see it so often, and you can't go out and grab people and smack them in the face and say stop being a twat. But yeah, I think there's not enough people that are focusing enough on their individual characters and honesty. That is what it comes down to. Honesty. This word, honesty, is so important. It has to be made a sacred word, this word honesty, because of what it means. Honesty, the acceptance of what is and what is actual and what is real and what is truthful and what is profound, instead of just the kind of accepting what is given to you, even if you don't really know what it is or what is true. And this applies to everything, to questions of self, to questions of politics. You know, sorry, go on.
It's inherent in the modern world that subjectivity is the king.
Absolutely, but it has to be consciously fought against.
Yeah, no. Yeah, of course it does.
This is why I do all this. This is why I do all this and tell people. You know, because you have to plant the seed somewhere.
Yeah. All right, mate.
Sorry,
you obviously need to find somebody and plant the seed. Right. Good on you.
What the? There's a second innuendo you thought today. Fucking hell, mate. You need to get laid.
I have a beautiful woman.
All right.
Right. Less said the better. Anyway, a point I was going to make is what was I going to say?
I don't know.
About subjectivity.
Right. Yeah, I think subjectivity is well. If we look at the idea of subjectivity and the idea that all truth and actuality is totally. I mean, subjectivity is different to relativity, is it not?
Yeah, subjectivity. I know subjectivity is fine. I think it's more the relative. It's moral relativism, which is really cancer. Subjectivity is bad in art, for example, when things are clearly beautiful and people are like, no, they're not. It's the beauty in the eye of the beholder, and you're like, yeah, all right then.
What's the difference between subjectivity and relativity? Is subjectivity the Is subjectivity the idea that truth is not
Subjective or subjectivity is based on your personal feelings and your basically your opinion.
Truth can be this or it can be that. Truth itself is malleable. Where relativity, I think, is dependent upon more on the appearance of truth. I think relativism, I don't think one can cast totally aside because, like, for example, a peasant will have his understanding of truth and the king will have his understanding of truth, and they will be different. Truth or religious truth, for example, will be contextualized differently for them. So it's relative in that sense.
Yeah, but relativism means that no points of view have any absolute truth or validity, but within themselves. So they're,
I thought that was subjectivism.
Well, I'm just reading the definitions. Relativism is the concept that points of view have no absolute truth or validity within themselves, but rather only relative, subjective value according to differences in perception and consideration.
Right.
So it's that's basically moral relativism. It's like different strokes for different people. You see what I'm saying? Whereas what we need to say to people is no. There is a clear principle here based on tradition over so many thousands of years or whatever, or going back to a set of divine laws.
But who are we speaking to in this instance?
I don't know, everybody.
But everybody? Well, some fucking filthy egalitarian are you? Are we speaking to peasants or Brahmins or? And this is why I have to say.
But don't you think that everybody should? Don't you think that everybody should live by a?
A society has to have a sense of cohesion, of course, right? Common language,
right? But you can have a hierarchical structure where there are different classes of people. But if you want to live in a civilized society, you won't have one set of morals for the slaves and the one set of morals for another set of group, because if the slaves happily kill each other, then you won't have any slaves. You want to enforce law upon the slaves. Maybe it's not a moral law, but it would be
it is a moral law though. So a patrician in Rome could kill his own sons. It was morally justified for him to do that because he was part of the patrician class. But a slave would not be deemed as moral because he was not patrician. So morality is different for these groups. They behave differently because intrinsic to their caste. But this isn't to say that there is no truth or there is no way to behave. It is a fixed reference point. It is fixed, but it is refracted differently per caste. Right? So that's why you have religious esotericism and exotericism. It's the same thing, really, but it's a different mask. It's a different approach. It's a different depth of understanding, a different depth of seeing what is before you. But I mean, yeah, modern moral relativism, should be cast out the fucking window and all the rest. But
the other point I was going to make is within the sphere of politics. Politics today is that you have to accept change and you have to show that you are progressive. You can't go back on anything that's gone before because that would be reactionary.
Of course,
and the current conservative government is clearly not conservative because they would say that no, we're not going to do anything apart from manage the economy and the police and the armed forces and stuff like that, and we're actually going to repeal the things that have gone before. That's not going to happen, clearly.
No.
So we can't play that game. Really, what we're trying to say is that we have these fixed, immutable principles or positions that we're not going to change on, and in fact, it's the world that has to change to us, really.
Right. Yeah. But
obviously, that's not going to work within a modern setting, is it? So we're stuck at that point.
So even saying the words everyone, every person, and that is a problem. Even using that sort of term, should politicians?
Yeah, I think to be fair, to be honest, from my perspective, is that I perhaps still haven't grasped fully the meaning of the inegalitarian principle.
Dude, it's all right. Don't worry.
But,
you'll find it. It's not a worry.
No, I'm not apologizing because I'm upset or anything. I'm just saying.
Oh, good.
As a,
don't apologize.
I have to admit that because it would once you admit a fault, then you can correct it.
Yeah, that's fair. But yeah, there is an absolute truth, but there is order lacking in society, and so you have basically the worst mingling with the best, believing they can all understand exactly everything in exactly the same way. And this is the problem with modern science as well.
There is, I mean, for the other thing as well, Adam, is that there's no such thing as a caste anymore. Not in the Western world. Nobody. I mean, not one defined by any principle of tradition.
Not one defined outwardly. No, it's
just money.
I think caste does exist. I think caste is intrinsic to human beings, and really to all human beings of all races and cultures. There is caste and differences in caste. And inequality in caste, of course. But yeah, their realization in the society is mostly absent. It's, you have everything mixed together in this kind of mishmash, in this orgy of nonsense. So this is why you can have a Kshatriya born from plebeian Sudra or whatever. You can have this mixing up because the world as it is mixed up, because order is lacking on the societal level as well as the individual level, and it's lacking on the societal level because it's lacking in the individual level. So
if you were a patrician, would you want to kill your slave?
Depends on what my slave had done. Ideally, no, because
he's your slave, his property.
But it's not so much as that, but it's just
a waste.
Well, yeah. Well, the act of a killing is quite serious. Even if it's a sacrifice, it's not something to be just done just because.
I suppose that's where I differ with you, because if the slave had done something wrong and the punishment was death, and I'm still at the point where I would say that he life is still sacred, so I don't have a right to kill the person. But I think I'm still looking at it from a very British way of thinking about it, or English way of thinking about it. So I'm still in the mindset of anybody who's guilty of something should be tried before a jury of their peers before they're killed or something like that. I'm not casting my mind back.
I understand why you think that. I can empathize.
I would probably still say that I'm a patrician of some sort. Like a an aristocratic person, maybe, high Tory, that sort of thing, but not casting my mind back so far into the past, because I don't think I can't go that far.
I think honestly the circumstances where a death would be an appropriate punishment, there are so few, and they would be justified. I think death is the most extreme thing you can kill. I mean, well, maybe actually.
Unless you're Plato, of course. I was listening to a podcast on Plato recently, and in his Utopia, if you were an atheist or a heretic, you would be let off with 5 years of imprisonment. But if you did it again, you'd be executed. It's probably cut down on that pretty quickly.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but I think the instances where you would kill your slave are so rare. I don't think it would be very common. But regarding trial by jury, etc., for freemen, of course. But I don't think slaves are afforded that. If we go by law, and this is even true in England until what? Exactly.
Well, actually, yeah. If you go back to I think it was the Norman Conquest. They were in the Doomsday Book, or one of the laws or something passed, and maybe it was one of the King's proclamations around that time, that anybody in the Kingdom of England can't hold slaves of another free Englishman.
Yeah.
And it was even as early as that. So I think.
Well, I'd certainly
don't agree with chattel slavery, and it would be. I know you would say, a slave, not chattel slavery, but I know that you'd say that something along the lines of, antiquitarian, that kind of slavery it existed in antiquity, and it would exist in a traditional society. But even then, I think you would have to say a difference between a serf and a slave.
Yeah, of course you would, because serfs belong to the land, which is owned by aristocrats.
And oddly enough, I agree with that, but I don't agree with
a serf is not the same as a peasant.
slavery.
It's not the same as a peasant, we have to say. But I don't see anything
Mm.
inherently immoral with slavery as a social system, or having it as an aspect of society. I believe being cruel to people, even slaves, I think is immoral. I don't think being wicked and cruel and enjoying the pain of others is. No, that's not indicative of moral healthiness. Absolutely not, or even psychological healthiness. Taking joy in the hurting of others just for the sake of hurting. Absolutely not. So whipping and needless cruelty. No, that doesn't fall into it. The trouble is, when most people think of slavery, that's what they think of. They think of, taking your local Negro and beating him around a bit because he looks at your daughter. And that's a totally. I mean, that's not right, but that's not that's not what slavery was for the most part, or should be, or really is.
No, yeah. I mean, I've read some historical fiction and been acquainted with accounts of slaves being treated exceptionally well by their masters, so they almost feel part of certainly feel part of the household, and maybe even close to the family, and in some way that's good. But I suppose that's something. That's a moral revulsion that it might not necessarily be good to try and overcome. It might just be something inbuilt, or it might be something that, as you say, it's certainly affected by the concepts of Negroes being.
Yeah, we have that cultural baggage. We have that cultural baggage, which is understandable, but I don't think that invalidates the actual idea of slavery itself. It's not the most wonderful thing in the world, but I don't see it. I don't think of the idea of slavery as it existed in Rome or ancient Greece or any up to like 1800 in Europe for the most part, or really up to the Middle Ages. I don't look at that, and I'm not revulsed with horror and kind of humanitarian gall. I just kind of see it as part of the society. It's how society functions as part of it.
I actually don't think that in Christian Europe there was really much in the way of slavery.
No, there wasn't.
I think there was servitude, there were peasants, there were serfs, but it was a lot more commonplace in the Islamic world, and
yes, it was.
Of course, that continued far longer than the slavery, the chattel slavery that
lasted until the 1960s.
Well, it continues to this day. I mean, slavery around the world is still a major issue. I remember, was it on a live stream? It must have been on a live stream when you were talking about the slavers down the road, what they were called. The human traffickers.
Oh yes,
down the road that were caught
down the road in Pinho Garage.
Yes, fucking disgusting.
I don't think I don't think it was slavery per se. I think it was indentured servitude or something like that. I think it was something to do with people having, human trafficking, indentured servitude. Something to do with having people's passports and holding it over them and forcing them to work for you in order to give them your passport and things like this. And it's all to do with East Europe. These are Cypriots and Slavs, and not the northern Slavs, the southern Slavs. So that kind of eastern part of Greece, and that's where these people come from. That was in fucking Pinot Garage. I think it'll be you web search it, I think you'll see it. At least that was what I was told. I'm not sure if it was all as dramatic as that. It wouldn't surprise me. But slavery was not really a huge thing in Christian Europe. It was much more a thing in the Islamic world. And it still continued legally until the 60s, but it still continues to this day, of course, but just not on the surface.
I think there are more slaves in Africa today than there ever was under chattel slavery.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, if you think about the number of people that live in Africa now compared to the people that have lived there
Yeah.
before, plus all of the just crime that goes on across
various
the
places.
country. Although
It wouldn't surprise me,
not be,
but
I would not go so far as, I mean, the thing is about Africa is that we have this concept of it, but actually there are a lot of functioning cities in Africa and a lot of functioning countries in Africa that aren't like Zimbabwe, which have just driven Whitey out. But I mean, it's not all jungle and huts, you know, but it's a major, at least it's at the very least, it's a major demographic problem for the world, especially for Europe.
Africa is not Africa as it is demographically is not a good thing. But back to the topic of slavery. I mean, you have the
idea. Want to
idea.
stay on the topic of slavery?
I had something to say. You babble on.
You've got something to tell us, Adam?
Well, as we know, Pope Gregory and the Anglo slave boys. Interesting tale. But anyway, I think to the Greeks, to be enslaved really just meant to be in debt. So if you were in debt to someone, you were enslaved to them to a degree.
Fucking student loans.
Which is true. That's what fucking usury is, technically.
Yeah, but that's why it was not allowed in Christian countries.
Yeah. I wish we still fucking lived in Christian countries.
I was looking on Twitter and I found a good account called Aristocles something.
Oh, Aristocles Invictus. It's Ramsey. He's been on the podcast a few times.
No, not him. Unfortunately, not. I don't think it's him. It's somebody else. Okay. His name's Aristocles, and he's got some numbers after him. His name, right, and him and a few other people seem to be quite. They're on the traditionalist wing of the alt-right, and they're actually saying that this whole thing with Hillary saying things about the alt-right is not actually good because it brings it into the mainstream. And then people, then we get the problem of entryism and the whole watering down mess. But the less said about that, the better at the moment.
Well, actually, I was babbling about Hillary's talk earlier. We've done three main topics so far. We've done Hillary, we've done esotericism, we've done slavery. So I have to remember these things so I can title the Hangout so people actually know what the fuck we're talking about half the time. But yeah, so we can talk about that if you want, unless you have anything else to say.
Well, I was going to say something and I forgot what I was going to say. Cheers, what were we talking about before you mentioned Hillary?
I mentioned saying Pope Gregory and
no,
slave boys.
No, just now. What were we talking about?
I can't fucking remember.
This is the problem. There's so much to talk about, and then you end up.
So much goes on. I've had a few drinks, so I'm a bit. I don't even know what I just said 5 seconds ago. Kind of like that. So
just gonna wait until the chat catches up with us.
We could talk about Hillary Clinton.
No, I don't want to talk about it. It's too.
Is it too late?
No,
you don't want to sound like you're whining.
This aristocrat person. He was talking about how we to have a strong defense against usury. You need a very, very sort of powerful leader who will lay down the law and keep it out, much like Edward I did, and he tried to convert the Jews to Christianity, following being a merciful Christian leader, and then of course they refused. So he told them that they could only take what they could carry, and he kicked them out of the country and confiscated all their gold. But of course he was doing what any staunch English king would have done, and followed the letter of the law in Magna Carta and expelled the Jews. And if you actually look, I don't know if I ever could find a copy of it, but I've seen a diagram, a map of Europe, and it shows the different dates and the different places the Jews were expelled from, and it shows the arrows of where they moved to, and that's why they end up in Eastern Europe. It's because there was nothing in Eastern Europe, and nobody could. I'm not kidding. They just got expelled from everywhere.
Yeah. Go on.
I think the reason why Oliver Cromwell, I think I said this in the last Hangout, the reason why Oliver Cromwell brought them back in is because it was a way to to make money because only, you know, he could use them to sort of process money to do usury, to loan people money. And the New Model Army was incredibly expensive to fund because it was the first standing army, paid army in the history of Britain.
And as we all know, standing armies are degenerate.
Yeah, exactly.
Fuck you,
So,
Napoleon.
yeah, exactly. Although, I mean, if you're talking about heroic people who stand outside of time, people like Cromwell and Napoleon and Muhammad are very interesting figures. All you have to do is read on Heroes and Hero Worship by Thomas Carlyle.
Yep.
But that doesn't mean that they're good people in our opinion, or in any, you know, in the traditional concepts, you know. But it's like when I don't know if you've read this book, but I've read the summary for this book, and it's The Lightning of the Sun by Savitri Devi.
No,
it's
I've seen quotes, but no.
Crazy book. Basically, she takes Genghis Khan, what's that name of the
Attila the Hun?
The Egyptian king,
Ramses?
Akhenaten, the guy who created the sun cult and monotheism, and then the Egyptians covered up all mention of him because they're like, oh shit, whoa, this guy's pretty fucked up. And then Hitler, and she said that there was Genghis Khan was one facet, and Akhenaten was another facet, and then Hitler was a synthesis of the two, and he was basically not Vishnu,
Kalki Avatara.
Kalki Avatar. Yeah.
Esoteric Hitlerism. I had someone email me asking if they should study this, and I said no. What the fuck are you doing? It's so retarded.
Yeah, it's
Savitri,
crazy.
She was an intelligent woman, but for fuck's sake, this is the most retarded thing I've ever fucking seen.
Didn't Bowden do it?
He did do an interesting talk on her.
Yeah. I mean, she's a very interesting woman in an academic.
Yeah, she began as a mathematician, actually, the same as Guénon.
Yeah.
I don't know if Elder and Guénon have ever mentioned her. Ooh, something to look up. But yeah, it's pretty interesting stuff.
Yeah. So yeah, that's where we end up with the beheading of King Charles and the modern world. I actually think that the modernization process in England happened after Richard III was killed and Henry Tudor took over.
Right.
The aristocratic line of or the royal line of the Plantagenets had killed each other, massacred each other in the War of the Roses. So there was nothing left but you know, a hunchback cripple and a perfidious Welshman called Henry Tudor. And it was just so happened that even though Richard III had scoliosis and he had a warped back, he meant that he couldn't really fight for as long as other people because he would get tired quickly. But he was actually quite a competent fighter, because just like any other nobleman, he'd been trained since youthhood, you know, from childhood to be a fighter. And he apparently killed a score of men before he was taken down with a halberd to the back of the head. But he basically saw Henry's standard and charged him at the head of like a cavalry charge, and it ended up failing. But you know, that could have gone the other way, and it could be a whole lot different. But yeah, so Henry Tudor came from a very sort of low standing family, Welsh family, who was connected to, I mean, he did have a claim to the throne, fair enough, but you know, it was what he did after that which secured him his place, because he married Elizabeth of York, thus blending the Lancastrian line and the Yorkist line together. He dated the day of his reign from the day before the battle, thus making everybody who fought against him a traitor. So he had the whip hand over them, and he could just take away their land if he wanted to. And he also defeated several rebellions during his reign. Two rebellions, I think.
Hold on, he did what? He signed so he could take away their land.
He
that goes against Magna Carta.
He dated his reign from the day before the battle, thus meaning everybody who was fighting against him was traitor. No, he had. There's something called an Act of Attainder, where you can, if you're a traitor to the crown, your land is forfeit.
Right.
It is reign from the before, so he was like, "Oh, you guys are traitors," and they're like, "Oh." So
what
that's
a fucking what a fucking cunt.
and then of course he did actually defeat two successive rebellions later in his reign, at 2 points in his reign, and then towards the end of his reign, he became a extremely sort of like Scrooge-like, for want of a better term, and he had deputies go out amongst the country, they got a share of the tax money that they took from people, and so they really sort of collected this huge wealth together, and everybody was happy when he died. This is the history that I've learned when I was younger, but maybe it's something that could be challenged. But and then so when Henry VIII came to the throne, he was actually the people were actually extremely happy. But then, of course, Henry VIII had great delusions of grandeur, and he wanted to emulate Henry V. So he basically squandered all the money that his father had raised in a few succession of wars in France, and then which led him to say, "Oh well, I need more money. Oh, and I need a new wife. So let's ditch this wife. Let's get a new wife, and who happens to be a Protestant, and at the same time, let's destroy everything beautiful in Britain by burning and seizing all the monasteries and hanging all the clergy." Yay! But at the time when I was reading this, I thought, "Oh, right, he's a strong king. He's doing what he likes, and it's great." But thinking back,
you realize what implications it actually has.
Yeah,
and you kind of see, hold on a minute, the destruction of all this tradition, and all this history. One of the monasteries really close to me, actually, St. Nicholas Priory, just literally like 10 minutes south of where I am, over the road where I used to live. That was one of the monasteries sacked by Henry VIII. It was founded in like 1087 or something, and there was a really active monastery until Henry VIII. It's a fucking shame, because it's been basically a fucking ruin ever since. There was a nunnery for a while, but now it's just kind of used by the council to do like meetings and whatever, like events and shit like that. Privately owned, I think. And there's like stories about it being haunted and shit like this. But yeah, quite a shame. We will have to start a proper Obscure Reactionaries podcast, and you can ramble about history. Because these live streams are supposed to be like relaxed and informal and completely like lacking in all substance. And here you are daring to say things of value. Like how could you? But yeah, we'll have to do that idea. We'll have to I'm not gonna.
It's just
I can't add anything to what you're saying, because what you're saying is tightly knit and packaged and important.
But it's the same way as there's some of the things you say that I don't really know enough about, but you start rambling about things, and you can hear the passion in your voice, and that's the kind of this is in another sense, this is what's really important about public speaking. You have to be passionate about what you're saying. And this is one of the things when I'm at work, I have to be about history, so that's why it comes across in what I'm saying to people.
It's excellent. It's good. I'm glad I said. I'm just thinking it needs to be filtered into a constructive channel and reap of its positiveness.
But this is what we've been trying to do. What we both of us and other people have been trying to do with the Plebeian podcast. But of late, it's been difficult.
I'll have to think about it. We'll see if by next week, if there aren't enough people again, or if it is dependent on that, then I will scrap it and I'll start something else. and allocate my time on Fridays to doing something else. I still have our readings of Glub to put up. I still have them. I just haven't edited them.
Do we not? Do you think they all were good enough?
Oh yeah, they were. They're all great. It's all good stuff. I just need to put them up. It's just me being lazy. It's just one of these things. You have them there on your computer, all the files all ready. I just need to sit down an evening and do it. But I've just been doing other things. And also, I need to begin the Revolt readings again with Paul. But we agreed it was good for us to stop because we have to start actually adding our own commentary to it as well. And so every chapter we need to start actually fleshing it out with other things. You could help us with that. I don't want it to just be me and Paul anymore. Me and him taking turns reading this book. It's not good listening. So
have you finished that?
No. We got to like part 13 or something. Look on my channel. Yeah, sure. I haven't uploaded for fucking months.
Well, next Friday, if it turns out that there's... Am I going to be here next Friday? I might not be, actually.
Well, we'll see. We'll work something out, but...
Aye. Back in a minute.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah. But anyway, viewers, we will work things out and things will be happening. It's just one of these things. It's just fucking life sometimes. Anyway, I haven't read any comments for ages, so I'm going to do that now Duncan's gone away for a minute. So if you have questions that I haven't answered, repeat them if you like. And I will do my best to answer them. The WCR podcast network soon. Yeah, indeed. I really want to start something with West Coast Reactionaries doing podcasts because we have loads of contributors. No one... It's some people are busy. But I want to have that serve as a kind of more formal hub. I mean, it's not going to be tight and shiny as some things are. I don't like doing things like that. It comes off as pretentious, like you're trying to sell people a product and you have to give it all this glitter to make them want it. It's bullshit. But I want to do something with a load of those guys. Some of the guys we have there, Chris Grant, Testis, of course, Paul Hotherus, all good guys, and I want them to do more and be more active and produce more. There are loads of people who I really feel like who I know, people who comment and take part in things I do and I've spoken to, I think should just give more to the community because they have something to give. And I know a lot of people don't want to put themselves outside of where they belong, and people don't want to come across as charlatans or be wrong about things. But really, all this does come down to is honesty and the fact that if you are wrong, you can admit it. If you say something and put it on the internet and you get corrected, if you're humble enough to say, "Yeah, sure, I'm wrong," and it's not a big deal, no one's going to worry. But if you stimulate the whole discussion and give your 2 cents, it's going to only be appreciated because you're only doing something positive and constructive and informative, entertaining, educational, inspiring, etc. It's only good. What gets bad is when people are wrong and they don't admit it and they act like pricks and they get all pissed off for no reason. So there you go. How I watched Utopia. What's Sam Hyde's film? Yeah, a short one. Yeah, Alaric, you should make more vids. Duncan, we could talk about
I'm back now.
The Hillary Clinton speech. I know, I heard you back. If you,
I might have to break out the whiskey. Fucking hell.
Actually, fuck it. I'll be right back. It's 12:30. I need a glass of water, so I'll be right back.
A glass of tap water with my chicken.
What?
It's do you know who what's his name? Chris. What's his name now?
Some fucking obscure comedian.
There was a wrestler called
Mate.
What was his name? Chris somebody or other. He killed his fucking wife and kid over chicken and tap water.
Okay.
Anybody in the
I
comments?
don't know whether that's funny or not, but
It's not funny.
just you laughing.
No, there was he was a WWE wrestler, and
What is his American bullshit? Jonathan? What have you been watching?
Did watch a video where they had him come out. It was a video game where they had like 30 people in a rumble in the middle, and they had him come out, and it was like, oh.
Duncan, you are the only person who's laughing at this. For fuck's sake. Shut the fuck up. I'm gonna get a glass of water.
Anybody in the comments know what I'm talking about? Chris Benoit, that's his name, Chris Benoit. Fucking idiot. I suppose while Adam's away, we could have a look at the King of the World. Interestingly enough, the cover has a green man on it, which is a pre-Christian symbol, apparently. Often found in churches, which is even more alarming to some traditional Christians. So the contents page, let's read through that and we'll get an idea of what's in this book. Chapter 1, Western Ideas about Agartha. Number 2, Royalty and the Pontificate. Now, isn't that something that has appeared on West Coast Reactions and another odd number of sites? Mark Siddell comes to mind. Shekinah and Metatron. That sounds like some kind of transformer thing. The 3 supreme functions. Number 5, symbolism of the Grail. We're getting warmer. Melchizedek, a priest from the Old Testament that is said to be symbolic of an early Christ-like figure. Very interesting.
What are we talking about?
I'm just reading through the contents page of the King of the World.
Okay.
We're up to Luz, Abode of the Immortality. Number 8.
Spoil it for me.
I'm just reading the contents page. Jeez.
I know, it's important.
Actually, I shouldn't blaspheme.
Anyway, let's talk about Hillary Clinton. I did it at the start. I gave my thoughts at the start of this little live stream. Hold on. Fuck YouTube wants to report on something really important. Comment on Alexander Johans.
Yeah, we had a lot of comments for Johans, and I was like, nah, I'm not talking about Johans.
It seems like half my viewers are now like esoteric Johanists.
And people love Armenians. Well, at least they're not Turkish then. That's good.
Yeah, fucking Turk roaches. Not even human beings.
Exoteric Clintonism.
Exoteric Clintonism, that's what Ed said, yeah. Ed, you fucking cunt. Respond to my message on Skype, you damn Jew.
Yeah, exactly. Chris Benoit put his wife and kids in the sleeper hold.
Dude, I don't understand these wrestling memes. I'm not as fucking cool as you. I don't know these things. For me, what American TV did I watch when I was younger? Fucking Cartoon Network.
Cartoon Network. Esoteric Kardashianism. So let's talk about Hillary Clinton and how this is. I was trying to talk to Arjun about this, but he's a bit aloof these days. Is the next divine or the next revelation? Is it going to come from the god Kek?
No.
And Pepe. We've seen our Lord.
Pepe is a force of chaos. Actually,
no, I know. Yeah, exactly. It's the darkness before the light. So at least, we're gonna reach Pepe.
Realistically, according to Collegero at Gornahor,
right.
the next stage will be that of the artist. I don't know if you've read any of their recent posts, but I would. That's something.
No, but
interesting.
I read into the Egyptian god Kek.
Right. Yeah. Of course.
Or whatever it's called.
Keke.
Yeah, which is the god of darkness, and then it represents rebirth.
It's a god of darkness, symbolizing a particularly chaotic aspect of darkness. I think it's the idea of like mystery or unknowing, or of a lack of safety or assuredness. I think
just a reminder that Jesus is the Logos. Jesus is order. If you don't accept him as your Lord and Savior, you're going to burn in hell.
TBH. Sinners blown the fuck out.
TBQH.
Yeah. Anyway.
Hillary Clinton.
Let's talk about Hillary Clinton. What did you think of her speech, Duncan?
I thought nothing of the speech. I thought that, well, it was, well, it didn't serve. It was nothing new from her. All she did was call Trump a racist and drew allusions to him being a racist by association with these people. I think what was more important was the fact that the alt-right became was mentioned and was brought in further into the mainstream, which while hilarious, will have catastrophic problems for the alt-right itself.
Right. I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying.
But Hillary Clinton is, I think, still in a better position. She's not in a better position than Trump, but she's ahead of Trump still.
I don't think she'll win.
No, but I didn't say that. I think that it's like the Scottish referendum or something like that. If Trump can gain enough ground before the end, then I mean, essentially that's what he needs to do. He needs to keep pushing what he's doing. Keep doing what he's doing. Because Hillary is she's fighting a rearguard action essentially. Right. And she has nothing, or she's bluffing with nothing, and Trump knows that. Well, he should know that. I think a lot of people do know that, and she just keeps saying the same things over and over again, calling him names, all this, that, and the other.
Right. I said all this at the start. What you said, however, which I didn't say, is the impact it's going to have on the alt-right. By the way, it will appear in a minute.
But then, well.
But yeah, you said about that the alt-right will only be watered down by normies and cultural libertarians, all these other faggots, if people who are already here accept it. I mean, it's a decentralized network, so it's difficult to really define who is and isn't alt-right. This is why months and months ago, I said, if something like this happens, suddenly people are going to be rushing to define what the alt-right is, and that will a lot of people are going to say, "Oh, it's white nationalism."
But
then you'll have an ideological hardening, and anyone who isn't a white American nationalist won't be considered alt-right. That doesn't have to happen. Wose's video was good, if you saw it, because it didn't do that. It didn't say, "Oh, we're all white nationalists." It was broader than that.
People are gonna signal that they are.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what the fucking people do. It doesn't fucking matter at all. What matters is how alt-righters see themselves. What do countercurrents and radix and the right stuff say about themselves? It doesn't matter what the fucking pricks over there think. They're fucking irrelevant. What matters is you don't want all of a sudden, or slowly even, these websites and Woes and other people being swamped down by other people usurping the label. I don't think it'll happen. I don't think all of a sudden, Quadroon of Mossad is suddenly going to come out and say, "Hey everyone, I'm an alt-righter." He's not going to do that.
No, but
what's the point? It doesn't matter if the plebs think that something is which it isn't. It's completely irrelevant. Because on my channel, I have my views. If people come here and don't understand, I fucking tell them to fuck off. It's simple as hell. Like, I don't entertain people who have no idea what I'm talking about, or people I don't care about. And the same with Woes. Like, earlier today, there was a comment under his video about the alright.
I saw
And
that.
you saw it, you posted it on Twitter.
Yeah.
Told them to fuck off. If people do that, it's fine. It's just of no consequence that their speech enticed all the normies to search what the alt-right is. It's not an issue. What
I don't
matters,
think I'm disagreeing with you here.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, just to clarify, what does matter is if a counter signal, people all of a sudden say, we're all white nationalists, we're all white nationalists, that's when you will see the community kind of fracture apart, and people will become, people like me will be split away from the alt-right, and people like me will stop associating with the term completely, and that's when you'll see things change culturally, ideologically. Ed, hello.
Sorry, on the topic of subversion and entryism, do continue. I'm just making myself some tea.
That's fine. You aren't. I thought you'd be an expert. But
no, I am. I just my mouth's a bit full at the moment
talking
of
about
tea.
American politics and what do we get?
But it's fine. But this is the only worry people would have is entryism. Entryism is only a problem if people aren't aware of it. But due to the nature of the alt-right, due to the nature of image board culture, and the fact that a lot of people are image board users, and you have that cultural overlap. I mean, image boards are among the most elitist-minded cultures that exist on the internet. Tightly in-group preferential, a tight in-group culture. It took 4chan years of subversion and the fucking entire mod team being replaced by Moot, that fucking cunt, for Pol to suddenly soften. And even then, 4chan's Pol is still known as, you know, neo-Nazi, all that bullshit, even though it isn't. But it took the gutting the entire private community of that website to change everything, and even then, not wholly. So because you have this image board culture overlap in the alt-right, people are naturally going to be xenophobic, and not just in a political sense of nationality, but in the sense of being alt-right. So I don't think there's anything to worry about. This is what I was talking about months ago. I wasn't lamenting it or saying, "Oh, we need to change it." I was observing this possible trend. But to correct myself, it will only happen if people counter-signal too hard against entryists and don't just say, you know, you're ignorant of race, you aren't one of us, or you think Islam is fine in Europe, you're not one of us. Those sort of sentiments, generalizations, we could say. Sorry, Ed, you can continue.
Oh no!
If you've made your tea, you came here because you want to talk about Hillary.
Oh yeah. Sorry. Hold on. I think that in a way, Hillary has sort of. Well, first of all, I can understand, not necessarily fear of entryists, but, for example, I think that, if I'm not mistaken, a website like TRS, they made their forums closed. I think that was actually a good thing to do in the wake of things like this, because let's say a journalist, or like worse, let's say Antifa, try to infiltrate a forum where people are publicly talking about, you know, meeting up and whatnot and stuff like that. I think that for some people that might be really bad. There's going to be such a massive ramp up in publicity from Hillary's speech, her recent speech. It's going to be kind of insane. I think that a lot of it is going to be very negative, but I think a lot of it is just going to be confused people, because when she didn't, I don't think she really knew what she was talking about. You could tell that speech was sort of written by 50 and 60 and 70-year-olds.
Just to say, I did say this all at the start of the podcast, of this live stream. Yeah, it was clear she was just reading a script. Yeah. She was reading a script by people who don't know what they're talking about. So
precisely, but I think that one of the funniest things was the conflation of Alex Jones with sort of identitarianism.
The filter king. Every time but that demonstrated that she had no idea what she was talking about, or the people who wrote the speech had no idea what they were talking about. In relation to this topic, Armenian Chica says, do you think that there are any possible negative effects of a confusing Milo types with the alt-right? Oh yeah, because Milo Yiannopoulos is nothing to do with the alt-right.
One of the funny things is that Milo actually recently, I mean, to his credit, he basically said, he disavowed, he said, why is the media so eager to portray me as the figurehead of the alt-right? I am not the alt-right. And I mean, he most certainly isn't. Whatever the alt-right is, I wouldn't say it's him. I think that, I mean, and also just to wrap up the point that I was saying earlier, I think that in the confusion, people don't know what they're looking for, but and every website, it seems, is scrambling to put out a different message. You know, like Radix, Countercurrents, I don't know, etc. Millennial Woes made that video, and I think that that is good, because otherwise the mainstream sort of media situation in America and in the West is going to paint a very convoluted picture and bizarre picture, it seems, that is far from accurate. And
See, I don't think it matters how they represent the alt-right. The alt-right is what it is, irrespective of what they say. The community is the sum of its parts. The community is not shaped by external stimuli, such as onlookers. So the alt-right is changed by what Countercurrents publishes and what Radix publishes and what people like Kevin McDonald and other people say and do and advocate and support and don't support. That's what drives this community. What its members and content creators and audience support, espouse, etc., rally behind. So it doesn't matter what these other things say or do, because the truth is fucking there anyway. You have alt-righters by the hundreds coming out and saying, yes, this is what we believe, or what I believe. It's all there. The media, the liberal media, is going to paint a bad image anyways, because we're to the left of Marx. I mean, to the right, sorry, of Marx. So I don't understand why people would be worried about this. As for people like Milo Yiannopoulos, Milo is a fucking degenerate. He's a terrible human being. He's a disgrace to Catholicism. He's a disgrace to Englishness. Like he's a depraved and deplorable. Yes, he's a Catholic. He's a depraved and deplorable individual. That's why I would say his support isn't good, because the man is a fucking cretin. It doesn't matter if he fucking writes an article about us. That doesn't change what people in the alt-right think. That doesn't change what people in the alt-right think or the way they live their lives. It's of no importance. The cultural shift which the alt-right is representative of will happen because of attacks like Cologne and Nice, and will happen because of constant ineptitude and maliciousness and dishonesty from politicians, not because some faggot decided to write an article. These changes we're seeing in our society go beyond a few thousand shitposts on the internet. We are representative of the broader current beneath us. If we somehow educate a few people about the world, then that's a few more people added to the undercurrent. There's a few more people who are a part of this change. But it's going to happen whether or not, like people like him or whoever else write or whatever. Individuals, unless it is in the most important and exclusive circumstances, don't read much regarding these important cultural trends. So that's what I've had to say about that. This speech is interesting, and it totally and only indicates the ineptitude and lack of knowledge present in Hillary's campaign. It does nothing else and doesn't change anything, apart from a few more people watch Woe's videos than mine. But most of those people won't get it anyway. So there's nothing changed. in my opinion, anyway.
Well, I think that it's going to become not necessarily a household name, but I think that what's going to invariably happen is, okay, one person, they're chatting with their friends at work. They'll be like, "Oh, did you hear about that thing that someone mentioned on the radio?" I think like, "Oh, did you hear what Glenn Beck was talking about on the radio? He said something about the alt-right. Have you guys heard of that?"
Yes, mate. Gaelic Neo-Reactionary uploaded a snippet of that speech on his channel. It's fucking retarded of you. They're all supremacists. They want ethnic cleansing. It doesn't matter. It's totally unimportant and irrelevant. It didn't change a thing.
Beck
anyway,
is an odd character.
Yeah, I think I don't know. People like him, I think, have issues to a degree. Just if you look at some of the things he's done, and the attention seeking, and the putting his face in fucking crisps.
Yeah. Plus, I feel like he is. He has a sort of shillish element to him, especially when he's talking about. He is he's sort of like this. It's maybe the whole sort of Christian thing, but with the whole Israel and America and that whole thing. It just seems a bit like he's really against. He's really for like Israeli nationalism.
Dude,
but
it's
he's really
standard,
against
yeah, it's just standard neo-retardation, neo-conservative moronism. It's a similar cognitive dissonance you see on the left. You put ideology before logical consistency and before truth. Ideology and adherence to ideology comes first.
Yeah, I mean, tradition. I just want to jump in there, Adam, and say that tradition isn't an ideology.
No.
It's complete rejection of ideology, and you, in all its forms.
No, what we label tradition is truth. Is truth as is perceived perennially and spiritually, transfigured through the context of a social order in the human plane, as well as in the interior level of individuals, etc., etc. Even using the term traditionalism makes it kind of an ideology, which is a mistake. Which is why.
Well, that's why you're saying a traditionalist is somebody who has not chosen a tradition.
Exactly. Yeah. Which is why it's just best not. I'm trying to not use the term anymore. Tradition or traditionalism.
Should change that.
It's tricky. Perennialism, yeah, you can use because it's describing an idea. But when you use the words like tradition and traditionalism and traditionalist, you quickly designate. You conflate lower T and uppercase T traditionalism, and it's unnecessary to use the word uppercase T traditionalism unless you're approaching people who have no idea what the fuck you're talking about, and you have to box it and package it like that so they can understand it mentally. Otherwise, it's not necessary because it's just simply what is natural and what pretty much all progress has been a reaction against. So there you go. But anyway, back to the topic of Schillery and all these sorts of things. Like I said, it doesn't matter if we have the influx of normies. It doesn't change anything on what we do and what you and I do. Our actions don't change. Our actions stay exactly the same. As for things being good for the movement, as far as I care, I'm not part of any movement. I am simply myself, and I'm being true to myself, and that does not require me to fit into some kind of political movement. I fit into a cultural trend, but I see it as quite a natural state of affairs. This kind of, I have a cyclical view of history and of civilization. We are traversing a certain swing on a pendulum right now, and I'm a part of that. My actions, consciously and unconsciously, will reflect that and further it along, even slightly. So I don't see. One doesn't even have to be aware of it. It just is, and if one is true to oneself, then everything fits into place. So people overthink these things and apply labels and forms to things which don't need them, or they box things into conceivable shapes, which is unnecessary. these things are the way they are. Doesn't change how we act. Doesn't change how we live our lives. It doesn't change the truth. So maybe I'm just getting into this core thing because I'm tired. But there you go. Do we want to wrap it up, or is there anything we wanted to talk about?
Nothing comes to mind at the moment.
No.
If anyone's
Ed,
interested,
Ed,
yeah.
Your message on Skype. Are you going to come to England then?
Yes, I am. Very, very likely.
Okay. When will that be?
Probably within the next few weeks.
Okay. Please don't get here too fucking late, because if we're going to hike to Dartmoor and back, I don't want it to be raining.
That's understandable.
Right? And it is England, so it rains. I want it
That
to
is
be
true.
somewhat pleasant, so as soon as possible, if you can.
It's not
Working
likely
on
that
it.
he'll be here at the same time as the dates I was talking about.
No. Well, I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
But when I meet you, Duncan, we'll see what we do there. I mean, where do we want to meet? Like,
Well, that's the thing. Like I'm prepared to get the train
yeah.
to
Well,
wherever.
for me, mate, I don't have much money.
Well,
So-
I mean, I could donate some money to West Coast Reactionaries. Just train to-
That can't be a way for me to fucking siphon money for my own bullshit. No, that's not right.
No, I don't know.
We'll sort something out. We'll sort something out. Even if it's just you spending a day in Exeter, or we meet halfway, or something. Whatever you like.
Depending.
Yeah, the talk is in my talk in London is in September 24th.
I know it's on the 24th, but I'm going to be back at work. Well,
That's why I'm just saying that for the
I'm
record.
interviewing for a new job, so I don't know when I'm going to be. If I get that job, I don't know if I'll be finishing the contract here or going straight there. And there's a conference in London,
Yes, I got an email about that.
the TBG one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I won't be.
hopefully I'll be able to go to that.
If you're going, I might, but
Well, I've got a couple of things to deal with. Other than that, but if I can get to it, I'm going to get to it because
if you're going there, I'll go. But
yeah, I mean that'd be good. That's why it'd be good to meet up beforehand.
Yeah.
There's a couple of speakers who I want to listen to. Somebody's talking about cultural and other parts of cultural heritage and things like that, which I think might be interesting for me. And there's another one talking about something else. I can't remember.
Doesn't matter. It's not on the website. Anyway, it's the traditional Britain group. It's not my sort of thing, really. So
No.
Hear
I don't think it is,
you
but
say
it's,
no, that confirms it. I don't know if I'll go. If you go, I'll tag along. I'll be quiet. I'll keep.
I think you would get on fine, but
Right.
you definitely need somebody else to be there. I mean, it's not. This is because when you're in that kind of situation, it was difficult for me for the first time because I knew some people prior to going, but I'd not met them in person. So when I did meet them, it was quite an experience, and it's a bit like going to a conference at a university or something like that. A lot of it's hobnobbing and just talking to people, and you're standing around drinking tea, and you're talking to these people, but it's a bit. You're on the spot because you've got to say, who you are, what you're doing, and why you're important, why you're there. But,
yes, hello, good sir. My name is.
Well,
it's not exactly, kind of fucking this fucking
it's not exactly like that, but there is a lot of gravitas involved. But I ended up spending my time with people who I quickly realized that I wouldn't want to spend time with them again. Because which is not a condemnation of them or anything. It's just that they were not the same. They were
just different
level as me. They were. I thought I was out of my depth. Maybe they were better social actors than me, but they were talking about things that were, in a way, plebeian. When I was interested in more in other things.
That wouldn't surprise me. Like you told me this all on Skype. You told me
Yeah.
privately. We've gone over this before.
But yeah, I'm just on the page now. They've got a former BBC news producer there, so he's probably going to talk a lot about the bias there. They've also got somebody going to be talking about art and heritage.
Yeah, it's all a bit. It's all very. It all seems very hoity-toity and very.
And somebody talking about Rome, which is good.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's not. It's good just to go to meet people. To be honest.
Yeah. But the thing is, I don't care about meeting people just for the sake of meeting people. I want to meet people and actually make friends with them and understand them and them understand
me. Then you've got to meet them to have a chance to make friends with them because you don't know who they are.
Oh, of course, yeah. But I don't care about socializing just for the sake of socializing. I genuinely don't give a toss about most of these sorts of people. They fucking are so uninteresting. Just because they're right wing, quote unquote, doesn't mean shit. Like,
there are a couple of people in that milieu who might be worth talking to. And
we'll see. I'll see how impressed I am.
I mean, people like Adrian Davis were there as the last one. I mean, I enjoyed talking to him, and this person called John Kersey, he's probably worth talking to, and maybe a few others who are, I don't know, but
it doesn't matter, Duncan. Anyway.
Bit of a digression.
This is me just whining about rich people, so it doesn't matter. Anyway, Ed, do you have anything you wanted to say before I shut the fuck up?
I was going to. No. I was just going to say if anyone's interested in having another stream on my channel after this.
Well, it's 1 o'clock. I can stay up for another hour because it is a Saturday. If you would like.
Yeah, exactly. It's a Saturday.
It's a Saturday. I can get a cup of tea. I can wake myself up. Yeah, I know you would, Duncan. It's past your bedtime.
Right. Tuck yourself in.
Don't tell mummy.
Well, you'll laugh at me for saying past your bedtime, but you live with your parents. You don't have a job.
Excuse me. Excuse me. Can you stop the bullying?
Implying philosopher isn't a job.
Head philosopher of the alt-right.
I did my resume and they rejected me, but I'm a philosopher.
Yeah.
Actually, on my LinkedIn, I've put historian.
Wow. Okay. I suppose it is official with you. You actually, it's legal.
I've got 2 degrees in history.
Yeah. It's fucking get you, but you fucking think you're cool.
It means nothing in this world. I might as well have been a welder or a electrician or a plumber. Probably be making more money.
Does it? Well, it's not about the money, is it?
Yeah, that's the thing.
But yeah, it's not about the money.
Anyway, let's shut the fuck up. I might join Ed. You want to go to bed? Ed's gonna do things Ed does. I'm gonna also get a cup of tea. So everyone, thank you for listening.
Okay, sleep well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I hope I dream esoteric dreams.
Sleep esoterically, my little lambs. Anyway, fucking thank you for listening to this nonsense. Good night, everyone.